Okay, folks. So we're gonna be taking a little read through of this. It's my first Substack post. It's called "The Sexhaver and His Enigmatic Object" official copy. Here we got 3 instances of what I call social extraction. This one is Big Tony from 2021, 2023, anywhere between there. Um, this one in the middle is is this dude goes by Black and Wild on Instagram, and this is some girl interviewing him. Uh, he or she was listening, but there were times where I really didn't think she was even listening to what he was saying. This is Elijah Jameson being interviewed by this HTN, I want to say, and this is the official copy. So here we go. Why are we obsessed with enigmatic characters? How come if somebody shows a particular level of individuality, they are turned into a zoo exhibit for the conformist to watch? Why was the NPC trope subverted onto these people rather than the drones it really speaks of? Also, I'm going to narrow this down to men, and you can reason to what would happen with women. So, I will establish 2 categories: normie and free subject. Normie here will refer to normies and chads both, and free subject will refer to those outside that category, whether incels or the wild cards of society. So in a previous thing I wrote that I haven't put out yet, I established incel, normie, and chad rather than what people usually go with, where they go like sub 3, sub 5, and incel. Uh, what is it like? Uh, I mean sub 3, sub 5, uh, LTN, MTN, HTN, Chad Light, Chad. I don't do that. I just do 3 categories based on social relations that are qualitative instead of on a rating scale. I think that's a bit more of an efficient way. Um, qualitative, quantitative state. Yeah. So here we go. I say the wild cards of society because they're not always like incels, you know. Um, and I just didn't want to be too formalist. Anyways, normies love to poke and prod whenever they encounter N free subjects. I say N free subject because there's the meme going around like N void, and I figured it would be a good like cultural artifact to leave in there. Before it said individual, and I changed it to free subjects. That's why it even said N in the first place. I noticed it and I didn't change it. The normies are so deeply entrenched in sex hover ideology that the free subject, even while being a completely rational agent, more than the normie at least, appears ridiculous or foolish. To truly understand this, we need to first approach sex hover ideology. Slavoj Žižek talks about ideology being added to commodities and media, which is 1000% accurate, a little unprofessional, who cares? However, sex hover ideology goes deeper than that. Sex hover ideology comes from the little autonomy we have. I don't like how that I said the little autonomy we have because like I was in this mode of thinking where like I was like, oh, he must think that like ideology stamps down on us and like controls our every motion, you know. So I like said the little autonomy we have in this like cynical way. I don't like that. But anyways, the autonomy we have being used to participate in an exchange with society. The subject either seeks social capital. I don't like that term either. I'll get into why later. A self valorizing form of status with people, or an identity already conducive to such. This I call the law of identity and capital. I don't like that I gave that a name. And I should have just said expanding status. I say that in other things instead of this term. I say people do it to expand their status. Like I stray so hard from the term social capital. I should have done that here, but it doesn't matter. So, an identity because people aren't just always trying to like figure out the most unique way to be like, oh, check this out, check out what I can do, check out me. There, sometimes people just burrow into an ideology that's an identity that's already like safe, it's already accurate, that's already effective and confirmed. So that's why I said that. Uh, and that's how I uncover a lot of performative activity. In this pursuit, they use the remaining autonomy to self inflict with ideology. Yeah. Then put it back out in some type of way which gains them social capital. In a very concrete sense. This is just a reflection of me, like, really not wanting to use this term. Like, guys, I'm being concrete here. Because the reason for that is also a lot of pseudo theorists, they talk about it in the abstract. And they're just like, the social capital, and the people are trying to, they're investing in the people's stocks, the social stocks. Silly stuff, so I avoid it. The most immediate example is the performative male stereotype. Every normie is subjected to this phenomena at least slightly. They learn it through trial and error. So, like as a kid, you pick up these rewards and these you know non rewards, and you're like, oh, okay, I think I get it. You know, so you just cling. Um, what did I want to say? What did I want to say? Wait, are you reading that book as though like you've written it yourself, or no? This is what I was reading earlier. Oh, you didn't write that yourself, though. Yes, I did write. Yeah. Oh, you did. Yeah. The free subject, being deprived of young dating, entry level employment, and many other experiences, has little to no sex ever ideology. The free subject acts largely rationally to a point where those rational reactions or creative expressions, jokes, stunts, etc., have become outlandish to the normie. The normie reacts to the free subject because sex ever ideology infests his mind and his norms. So people are so used to this nature, this new sociality of just performing for each other and insidiously trying to mog and bitch and own each other, that like when there's just a person just like, hey, check out what I can do, hey, nice to meet you, I this is some aspects of my life, like it's so weird. It's like, why aren't you trying to fuck me over? Like it's outlandish, like I say. uh so the normie reacts to the free subject because sex haver ideology infests his mind and his norms. The flagrant transgressions, I say this kind of tongue in cheek because they're not really transgressions, they're just perceived as such, of the free subject are in some ways ridiculed, but they do create a rare form of intrigue. This intrigue is the same as that which the Orient brings to the Occident. That which the Orient brings to the Occident. Because of this dynamic, the normie knows no option besides the complete objectification of the free subject. So, there's the obvious thing in front of us that, like, they're getting an experience out of the free subject, but also look at what happens when there's Orientalism of any kind, right? I bring up the Orient and the Occident. The Orient is commodified, like their culture and existence is like turned to this. Whoa, look at this exotic experience. So it's a similar thing here. Uh, as opposed to engaging him as an equal, he must be seriously screwing up by not being a complete drone to sex haver ideology. So, from in this at this part, I'm trying to be like edgy and like really like touch the audience here with this. Okay. Uh, he must be autistic, retarded even, and it is like an artist to put rationality above norms. So autism will be a trend for free subjects. But what the normie is concerned with is diagnosing the free subject to conceal himself, to conceal sex haver ideology as a social relation. I'm very glad I said social relation because I just wanted that out there. The objectification of the free subject is, in fact, that they. Sorry. The objectification of the free subject is in the fact that they are not granted the same dignity as normies, and instead are only interacted with for the sake of extracting an exotic experience from them. All conversation is hastily crafted to generate reactions. Oops. Generate reactions and generate comedy for their enjoyment. Early Joshua Block, a creator called at Black and Wild. I'll show you him. He's this guy in the middle. Elijah Jameson, and Big Tony, from a few TikToks in 2023, may be pointed to as examples of end free subject. I love that. I love that. I come to like it now. Within this objectification, the free subject is sedated using disingenuous expressions of reverence and or admiration. They are irrationally placed on a false pedestal and quote unquote hyped up. This is not a genuine transfer of any social capital, but rather an embracement of what is being extracted from them and a satirical show of praise, which is the most Hegelian way to say you're such a fucking dork. See, I wanted to talk about this. This is what pisses me off the most, is that, especially with special ed people, by the time they get out of high school, they have been fully deluded into a world of utter fantasy and myth, because they're like, oh my god, look at this, everybody loves me, I'm so awesome, I must be doing something really cool because these people are all like praising me. But meanwhile, it's just a part of the sedation. It's just a part of the of their own social extraction, and so they're being like slid into this world of fantasy. Not only that, there's no institutions aren't aware of this. Obviously, it's a theory I made a few weeks ago, uh, and I'm nobody. And they're just like, well, this must be something good, because they're just looking at the surface. I don't judge them for that, but it's true, right? So they're just like they're being like completely deluded. It's like they're on the Truman show or something. So it really pisses me off. That the fact that this happens to free subjects, that this happens to incels and chuds and such. Um, and it is the most Hegelian way to say you're such a fucking dork because there's a contradiction between the surface and the reality. The free subject is granted excessive amounts of attention, not for insights they have or because they are more active in the conversation, but because they only provide value when entertainment is extracted from them. At times, the free subject is only objectified, but sometimes they do something heinous because of mental instability or psychological issues, and they enter a state of crucifixion, never stopping the extraction, but now granting no moral consideration to him because the transgression, is a reason to make them worse off. And it's basically a justification, and it's accurate. It accurately justifies it by most moral frameworks. This dude, yeah, oh my God, Chris Chan just committed incest. Oh my God, Daniel Larson is a I don't know what he did. He did something. What? Tiphead. I don't think that's a real term. Phibbs is a pedophile. All these things. So yeah, it technically stands. Joshua Block slurred somebody. Yeah, this holds water. Yeah, but not to say that they're wrong, but it's just a thing that happens. Crucifixion is a different thing. Generally, the crucified are more likely to become quote unquote locals and face the most extreme extraction. It's true. They are like nothing about them is looked at with any form of dignity, and they don't really have much left in an objective sense either. So, uh, there's arguably much of Lacan's surplus enjoyment to be found within the experiences the free subject provides. The ideology within these experiences is that the normie who consumes them is somebody who includes people who are treated as outcasts. The normie gets to be a force of unity and equality because that's what they believe they are providing to their free subject. Of course, all that the normie brings in most cases is social extraction and a myth of camaraderie. Uh, I'm not saying that they like diametrically opposed interests, but they just aren't treating them how they seem. Social extraction is the primary relation which needs to be understood. Experiences between a normie and a free subject become the normie's way to extract entertainment, ideology, and social capital to be found in certain contradiction. The contradiction of the normie's Sexhaver ideology and the free subject's rationally selected ideology. Now, that doesn't mean that they're like this completely free agent that just thinks above everybody and is a genius, and they're gonna they're the revolutionary subject and they're gonna lead the revolution. But this is just to say that they aren't subject to this particular kind of ideology. They're not insidiously constantly trying to perform and maneuver and posture all the time. So they get a head start in their thought process. It's a slight advantage in thinking. When both are judged by people with Sexhaver ideology, they grant favor to the normie in order to gain favor from one another. So they kind of collectively dampen their thought process by trying to perform for each other because they're trying to anticipate what they're going to say. So then, why are we obsessed with these? Why then are we obsessed with these enigmatic characters rather than averse? Well, it is explained by ideology and cynicism. Being entrenched in Sexhaver ideology, we do begin to question the system, but we do not question the parts of it which were fed to us as ideology. For instance, people become very cynical about capitalism sometimes, and they will begin to heavily criticize things like consumerism and commercialism. They may reduce the amount of luxury items they buy or stop obsessing over corporate media. fictions and non-fictions. The reason I made that clear is because I didn't want people to think that I was talking about like the globalists who run the mainstream media telling us lies. Like that's not what I'm getting at. Uh, but the way they view commodities and the way they live in the world does not change. They do not become revolutionary subjects or recognize the antagonistic nature of class society. I'm not saying that just because they don't think about like communism doesn't mean that they don't have revolutionary potential or they're not the revolutionary subject. I'm just saying that it doesn't like come into action yet at this point, Just because they start to talk about consumerism and commercialism doesn't automatically mean, oh shit, the proletariat's revolting. I need to do something. And this is where I explain why. So, yeah, they will continue to see work as something that will always exist as wage labor and try to fulfill themselves with non-committal, unimpactful mental masturbation over the weekend. The movie Office Space comes to mind. The main crew begins to dislike corporate life because they're being mistreated by the company they work for. However, by the end of their great adventure to sabotage them, they do not change anything about their logic of being besides maybe a less stressful life. Because all the protagonist Michael does is move to working in construction. And this is supposed to be him overcoming consumerism or overcoming capitalism. Still, he faces exploitation and burden during the week and cools off on the weekend. Still, he is a wage laborer. Still, he lives on commodities. Only now, he is not in a soul crushing job. Perhaps a back crushing job now. Gotta be more quiet. Uh, perhaps in a back crushing job now. He stayed in the proletarian logic of being because of ideology. Everything leading up to his office job had the proper ideology to convince him that that's just how it works. So, his reaction to capitalism was filtered by ideology into cynicism. He is cynical towards capitalism on the surface, but complicit to it ideologically. So, in the case of Sexhaver ideology, people tried their very hardest to avoid being, quote, obsessed with popularity, unquote. But deep down, they are still participating in the game. They are still performing and exchanging to expand their capital. Their cynicism to this shows when they cheer on free subjects and feed off the escape that the free subject gives them with his extracted circus performance. So they get cynical about sex haver ideology, and they're thinking about it. And the way that they mediate this is they go to a free subject and they do the social extraction. They get this experience out of them, this exotic thing. We should not hyperanalyze Obama chosen topics while bourgeois society creates new problems and situations constantly. We should look at all strata slash groups slash nations of people as they objectively relate to each other and as they are becoming. So yeah, I wanted to like make a point there, and because I didn't really have much of a point besides like uh explaining some of these concepts. So that's what I did. Um yeah, it wasn't really meant to be argumentative at all. But I'm basically just here explaining social extraction and what I believe it comes from and how I believe it manifests, and I think I did an alright job. Some of it I don't like anymore, but yeah. Send that to your professor about I guess. I guess. We code it and analyze it. Yeah, yeah. I'll probably pick a different one. But yeah. What more can be said? I mean, like, I can talk. Okay, so, like, this, I say that it started in middle school for me, and it's true. Like, because in elementary school, people are just these elementary school kids are just thinking about what's in front of them. They're not really, you know, they're not so much invested in like this game. And I mean, it could start for some people there. It could, but I just haven't seen it. Um, for my friend Jafet, like it was weird seeing him face the same things as me, and it really began to click when I saw when uh somebody who was like a lolcow came to my school, and like he started to face that, and it like it was the same people who were doing it to me doing it to someone else who was famous, and I was like, wait a minute, where there's such a parallel here, where's the differences? And that's where it really started to click. My friend Jafet, I spotted it mostly from like popular girls, which is a pretty common thing, and I was like, I really tried to unite with him over that, and it clicked, it worked. insanely. Like we just became best friends like right there. It was pretty cool. Um yeah, so um once you spot this happening, you can really go to those free subjects and you can have a conversation with them about a lot of stuff. And there's no ideology, you know? There's no ideology. So it's good. There's no Sexhaver ideology. There's ideology. There's no Sexhaver ideology. So I mean, you know,
You don't want to rant.
ranting can be good.